Gravel cut into Emily's feet as she ran under the moonlight, her breath ragged, every inhale burning like fire. Behind her, shadows closed in, footsteps pounding faster, hungrier, echoing louder. Emily said, "They will not take me back, not tonight." A door loomed in the distance, but before her fingers could touch its handle, it slammed shut from the inside. A man's voice whispered in the dark, "You know salvation has no escape." She stumbled, her knees scraped raw, but fear drove her forward. In the distance, the chanting of voices swelled, rhythmic, inhuman, demanding surrender. Emily cried, "Please, someone help me," but only the gravel answered, crunching under her frantic steps. A pale figure appeared in her path, blocking the way with calm authority, his smile sharp as a blade. The air turned colder, heavier, pressing against her chest. A single thought clawed inside her head. There was no freedom, only the cult. Shadows stretched long, devouring the edges of the night, while her heartbeat thudded like a drum of war. The night closed around Emily like a tightening fist, every step dragging her deeper into the nightmare. She said, "I can't stop, I won't stop," though her voice cracked with despair. Behind her, chants grew louder, pounding like drums, each word a blade in the dark. Daniel's calm voice whispered, "You belong to us, child. There is no salvation without sacrifice." Emily's heart pounded, torn between fear and defiance. Her eyes darted toward the trees, yet every shadow seemed alive, ready to strike. A howl split the night, not animal, not human, but something in between. She stumbled, clutching her chest, whispering, "God, please." But the heavens stayed silent, the stars fading behind thickening clouds. Emily's lungs burned, each breath slicing through her ribs as she forced herself forward. She said, "I won't let them break me." Yet doubt whispered like poison in her veins. Behind her, the enforcer's heavy boots struck the gravel with ruthless precision, each sound a countdown to capture. Michael, the enforcer, growled, "Run, if you must. It only makes your punishment worse." The words cracked like a whip across the silence. Emily's vision blurred, the world tilting as exhaustion clawed her strength. A branch snapped overhead, sending her heart lurching into her throat. Her mind screamed for escape, yet her body betrayed her, slowing against her will. Emily whispered, "Not here, not like this." The shadows pressed in tighter, their chants now deafening. A figure stepped from the circle of firelight. Sarah, her sister, her betrayer. Sarah said softly, "It's for your soul, Emily. Don't fight it." The words cut deeper than any wound. Emily froze, torn by love and rage, her eyes begging, "Why?" Sarah's hand trembled, yet her voice carried the leader's poison. Emily's heart cracked as Sarah's betrayal sealed her path. Emily whispered, "You were all I had left." The chants rose into frenzy, drums of doom pounding from the cult. Daniel's voice rang, "Tonight, the lamb is offered." Emily staggered backward, refusing, yet shadows grabbed her arms like chains. She screamed, "No, I not yours." Lightning ripped across the sky, illuminating their faces, zeal, fear, and madness. The storm within mirrored the storm above. Emily sat in the dim glow of a single lantern, the cult's compound silent around her, except for the crackling of wood. She whispered, "I only wanted to belong." Her voice trembled as memories of loneliness clawed at her chest. Before the cult, nights had been endless, the silence in her tiny apartment unbearable. Daniel's voice from the first meeting still echoed in her mind. "We are family and you are safe with us." Emily said, "I believed him. I believed every word." She remembered the warmth of hands holding hers, smiles that felt like salvation, and Sarah's laugh free of cruelty then. It had been so easy to confuse control with care. Emily muttered, "I was so desperate to matter to someone, anyone." And so the cage had been painted gold, and she had walked willingly inside. Emily remembered her first introduction to Daniel, the man whose eyes seemed to see into her soul. He had said, "You are not lost, you are chosen." His hand had rested lightly on her shoulder, his warmth disarming, his words intoxicating. Emily recalled how her loneliness melted under the weight of his attention, every sentence dripping like honey into her emptiness. "I thought he was my answer," she whispered. "He had promised love without conditions, a family without judgment, salvation without shame." Sarah had smiled then, saying, "Finally, we are not alone." Emily clung to that moment as though it was her lifeline. She muttered, "I thought I had found home, but I was just walking deeper into his snare." The compound had buzzed with laughter that night, firelight flickering across eager faces. Emily remembered Sarah saying, "This is where we belong." She had laughed too, her voice sounding freer than she had ever known it. The children danced barefoot in the dirt, their innocence masking the chains being wrapped around them. Daniel raised a cup, his voice booming, "We are one family, and tonight we celebrate rebirth." Emily had felt something inside her heart ignite, not fear but longing. She whispered, "I thought it was love." But beneath the songs and feasts, the shadows had been waiting, patient, hungry, biding their time. Emily's memories softened around the night. Sarah had taken her hand by the fire. Sarah had whispered, "I won't let you be alone anymore." Emily had clutched it tightly, her heart breaking and healing at once. She said, "For the first time in years, I believed I had someone." Their laughter mingled with the sound of firewood cracking, and for a fleeting moment, Emily had thought salvation wore her sister's face. Daniel had watched from a distance, his pale eyes calculating, his smile sharp beneath the warmth. Emily whispered, "He saw how much I needed love, and he used it." Emily remembered the sound of children's laughter echoing through the compound, their joy ringing pure against the night. A small boy had tugged her hand, saying, "You can smile now too." She had knelt, her heart trembling as she whispered, "Maybe I can." The fire's warmth had wrapped around her like an embrace, Sarah leaning against her shoulder with a tired but contented sigh. Daniel's voice rose in the background, chanting words of unity. Emily had thought it was hope. She muttered now, but every laugh, every smile was just another chain tightening, one I didn't see until it was too late. The days blurred into rituals that demanded absolute obedience. Emily said, "Every sunrise felt like a chain tightening." Bells rang at dawn, pulling them from restless sleep into endless chants. Daniel's voice echoed across the courtyard, smooth but merciless. "Discipline is devotion." Emily's stomach knotted with hunger as food was withheld for even the smallest mistake. Michael struck a young man across the back for coughing mid-prayer, the crack of wood echoing like thunder. Emily whispered, "I wanted to scream, but silence was survival." She forced her lips to move in chants, though her heart begged for freedom. Each word she spoke became another nail in her coffin. Emily said, "Every rule cut deeper, every punishment hollowed us out." Meals came only when prayers were perfect, and water only after hours of silence. The children trembled, their laughter silenced into rigid obedience. Sarah whispered, "It's for purity, Emily. We must be cleansed." But her eyes betrayed fear, darting toward Daniel's throne-like chair. Michael patrolled with a torch, his footsteps slow, deliberate, heavy. Emily clenched her fists, whispering, "This isn't salvation. It's suffocation." Still, her lips repeated the chants, even as her soul cried for escape. The children bore the weight of the doctrine most cruelly. Emily said, "They were too young to know chains, yet they wore them with every step." A boy hesitated during a ritual, his voice faltering in the chant. Michael grabbed him, dragging him before Daniel. The boy cried, "I'm sorry," but Daniel's face remained stone. He declared, "Weakness is sin." Emily's chest burned, watching innocence crushed beneath fanaticism. Sarah reached for Emily's hand, whispering, "Don't react, they'll notice." Emily swallowed the scream building in her throat. Silence was her shield, even as her heart cracked. Every act of defiance was punished with spectacle. Emily said, "They taught us that even breathing too freely was rebellion." A woman had refused to bow during evening prayers. Michael dragged her forward, striking her until she fell. Daniel said calmly, "Her suffering saves her." Emily felt bile rise in her throat. The cult members watched in silence, fear cemented into obedience. Sarah whispered, "Look away." But Emily couldn't. The woman's eyes, bloody but fierce, locked onto hers. Emily thought she dared to resist. That moment lit a spark she buried deep inside. Emily said, "Trust turned to poison. Every friend was a spy." The cult taught them to report each other, to prove loyalty with betrayal. She had seen neighbors whispering, their words slipping like knives into the night. Sarah confessed one evening, "I told them about you, Emily, only to protect you." Emily's heart froze, torn between rage and despair. Daniel praised Sarah the next morning, saying, "Your devotion is strong." Emily whispered, "Even love was turned into a weapon." Her chest ached with the truth. Rebellion would cost everything, but obedience was already killing her. Emily said, "Faith cracked the night I saw his mask slip." Daniel stood before the altar, eyes closed as chants swelled. His robe shimmered white, but a gold chain peeked beneath, heavy with coins. He had whispered, "Sacrifice brings salvation," but his gaze lingered on the wealth locked away in a wooden chest. Emily's heart stopped as she realized the truth. His divinity was an illusion, his hunger was power. She said, "He wasn't holy, he was only greedy." The firelight revealed the smirk at the corner of his lips, a predator cloaked in purity. That night, her devotion shattered into jagged glass. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. Sarah approached Emily in the silence of dawn, eyes soft yet trembling. She whispered, "Forgive me, Emily, but I must prove my faith." Emily's voice cracked, "You're my sister. You can't." Sarah's tears caught the morning light, yet her hands tightened around the book of doctrine. Daniel had promised salvation to those who gave their families over. Emily whispered, "She chose him over me." Sarah kissed her forehead and said, "It's the only way to save your soul." The words struck like knives, dressed in love, but dripping with poison. Emily said, "Even the silent ones knew truths they dared not speak." She noticed Thomas, the silent observer, hovering at the edge of gatherings. His eyes flickered with secrets, lips pressed tight. One night, as the cult feasted, he slid a scrap of paper into her hand. Scrawled words read, "No one leaves alive." Emily's stomach dropped, her pulse hammering in her ears. She looked at him, but he quickly lowered his gaze. Emily whispered, "Even silence speaks." She realized she wasn't imagining the trap. It was real, and its jaws were already closing. Emily said, "The cost of loyalty revealed itself in screams." That night, a man tried to flee. Michael dragged him before Daniel, his fists like iron shackles. The man cried, "Please, I only wanted to see my family again." Daniel's cold reply echoed, "Your family is here. The outside is death." With a nod, he ordered the punishment. Michael struck until the cries were swallowed by silence. Emily pressed her hands over her mouth, tears streaming, unable to look away. She whispered, "Loyalty meant blood. Escape meant death." The truth struck like thunder. Emily said, "Salvation was never life. It was sacrifice." Daniel stood at the altar, raising a knife above the fire, declaring, "Only through blood are we reborn." The crowd chanted, voices frenzied, faces alight with zeal. Emily's breath caught as she realized the ritual demanded more than faith. It demanded flesh. Sarah whispered, "Emily, it's the only way." Emily's chest heaved, horror clawing through her ribs. She whispered back, "Then I will never be saved." The fire roared, and the chains around her heart turned to ice. Emily said, "The night of reckoning came with blood and fire." The cult gathered in silence, Daniel standing tall before the altar, his knife glinting in torchlight. He declared, "Tonight, obedience will be proven through sacrifice." The crowd's chant rose, heavy and frenzied. Michael dragged forward a young woman, her wrists bound, her eyes hollow with terror. Emily whispered, "If I don't act now, I'll die with them." Her heart raced, palms slick with sweat. Sarah's trembling hand brushed Emily's, whispering, "Stay silent, please." But Emily's silence had already begun to crack, and rebellion burned hotter than fear. Emily said, "The punishment broke something inside me." The woman screamed as Michael struck her, blood spraying onto the dirt. Daniel's voice boomed, "Her pain purifies us all." The cult echoed his words, their chants deafening. Emily's body shook, her breath ragged, rage clashing with terror. Sarah whispered, "Don't draw attention, don't." But Emily's eyes burned as she thought, "Obedience is death." For the first time, she didn't bow. Her body stood stiff against the storm, her silence louder than any chant. And in that moment, she chose rebellion over survival. Emily said. Rebellion sparked with a whisper. In the shadows, Thomas slipped beside her, his voice low, "Run tonight or you'll never leave." His gaunt face shook with fear, but his eyes glimmered with truth. Emily whispered, "I can't do it alone." Thomas pressed a rusted key into her palm, muttering, "The gate is unguarded at midnight." Her chest thundered, hands trembling around the metal. Sarah tugged her sleeve, whispering, "If you try, they'll kill you." Emily's voice broke, "If I stay, they already have." The choice was no longer survival. It was war. Emily said. The night turned into a chase through hell. She slipped into the darkness, barefoot on cold gravel, every step slicing her feet. Behind her, Michael roared, "Stop her!" The cult erupted in chaos, torches flaring as shadows swarmed. Emily's lungs burned, her heart hammering against her ribs. Sarah cried, "Emily, no!" Her voice cracked with fear, torn between love and doctrine. Daniel's command thundered, "Bring her back alive. She must bleed for the altar." The world blurred, the night alive with pursuit. Emily whispered, "I'd rather die running than live chained." Emily said, "The moment came when survival meant war." She stumbled into the clearing, Daniel blocking her path, his pale face glowing with fire. He said, "Your blood is the key." His knife gleamed as he stepped forward. Emily's body trembled, but her voice rose. "You'll never own me." With sudden fury, she lunged, grabbing a burning torch from the ground, swinging it with all her strength. Flames burst, shadows danced, and Daniel's smirk faltered for the first time. Emily whispered, "I would rather burn this world than bow to you." The night split open, the fight for freedom ignited. Emily said, "Freedom didn't come with light, it came with ashes." She stumbled through the trees, lungs burning, torch long extinguished. The screams of the cult still echoed in her ears, though the forest had fallen silent. Her body ached, her robe torn, blood streaking her arms and feet. She whispered, "I'm alive." But at what cost? Behind her, smoke from the compound curled into the night sky, a grim reminder of the war she had unleashed. Emily's heart pounded as she muttered, "They'll hunt me forever." The forest offered no comfort, only shadows. She realized survival was only the beginning of another battle, the one inside her. Emily said, family was shattered that night. She remembered Sarah's face as she stood torn between love and obedience. The memory replayed endlessly. Sarah whispering, "I can't protect you if you leave." Emily whispered back, "You already chose them." That fracture echoed louder than any scream. Alone in the woods, Emily pressed her hands against her face, shaking. She muttered, "I lost her long before I ran." The emptiness swallowed her. Survival hadn't given her back her sister. It had only proven that love had been twisted into chains she would never forget. Emily said, "The scars lived longer than the chains." Days passed in a blur as she wandered roads unseen, hiding from every shadow. At night, she jolted awake to phantom chants. The words, "Sacrifice saves," clawed her dreams, tearing open wounds. She whispered, "I hear them even when it's silent." Her reflection in a stream showed hollow eyes, her face thinner, her lips cracked from thirst. Emily muttered, "I don't look like me anymore." She realized the cult's shadow lived not in the compound, but in her own mind. She was free, yet never fully released. Emily said, The world outside didn't believe. She reached a nearby town, her voice shaking as she tried to explain. Faces stared with disbelief, whispers rippled. A cult? That can't happen here. A man scoffed. She's just lost her mind. Emily whispered, they don't see the scars. An outsider named Mark, a journalist, approached with wary eyes. He said, tell me everything. The world needs to know. Emily's heart flickered with fragile hope, but fear lingered. She muttered, they'll come for me if I speak. Yet she also knew silence was another chain she refused to wear. Emily said, freedom wasn't peace. It was echoes. At night, she lay awake, the cult's chants ringing in her ears. She whispered, I'm not theirs anymore, though her voice shook with doubt. Every shadow outside her window felt like Michael's looming form, every gust of wind like Sarah's whisper. She clutched a blanket around her, muttering, I'll never escape them, not truly. Mark's words lingered. Your story could save others. Emily closed her eyes, breathing hard, torn between fear and purpose. She whispered, if I tell it, maybe the chains finally break. But in her chest, the weight remained. Emily said, freedom was not light, it was silence that pressed like iron. She sat in the motel bathroom, the harsh fluorescent bulb buzzing above her. Her reflection in the cracked mirror revealed hollow eyes, the kind that had seen too much. She whispered, I don't recognize her. The face that stared back wasn't the girl who once laughed in her sister's arms, or believed in Daniel's promises of salvation. She touched the mirror with trembling fingers and said, she died back there. The air was stale, heavy with smoke that clung to her skin, though the fire had burned far away. Mark's notebook lay on the counter, filled with her story, each line dripping with memory. She muttered, every word pulls me back into the cage. Her chest heaved, as if the chanting of the cult still lingered beneath her ribs. She whispered, if my story saves others, then maybe it was worth the nightmare. Yet as she leaned closer to the mirror, she saw Daniel's smirk flicker faintly in the glass, and her stomach twisted. She whispered, but even in freedom, I'm not free. Emily said, some chains weren't made of iron, but of whispers. She jolted awake in the motel room, heart racing, Sarah's voice ringing in her ears. The whisper was always the same, it's for your soul. Emily gasped, clutching the blanket, eyes wide in the darkness. She called softly, Sarah, but only the hum of the air conditioner answered. Her chest tightened as she whispered, I lost her, but she never leaves me. She pulled her knees close, rocking gently as tears streaked her cheeks. Every shadow in the room seemed to shape itself into her sister's face, torn between love and obedience. Emily muttered, she chose him over me, but my heart still aches for her. It was unbearable, longing and grief tangled into one. She pressed her forehead to her knees, whispering, why couldn't you choose me? Yet her sister's ghost lingered at the edges of her mind, neither condemning nor comforting, just watching. Emily's voice broke. Even in dreams, she holds me in chains. Emily said, the innocent haunted me more than the guilty. In restless sleep, she saw the boy again, his wide eyes reflecting the torchlight as Michael dragged him forward. She whispered, I should have saved him. Though the dream had no ears, his small voice echoed, trembling. I'm sorry, and then silence fell. Emily jolted, pressing her hands to her ears, muttering, stop, stop, please. But the sound of his laughter spilled through the dark, pure and heartbreaking. She whispered, he didn't deserve chains. Her stomach clenched as guilt stabbed deeper than hunger or fear ever had. Every night she heard his voice twist, shifting from laughter to chants, the cult's cruel chorus pouring from a child's mouth. Emily rocked in the motel bed, whispering, they stole his innocence, and I carry it now. The boy's face hovered in every corner of her dreams, a reminder that freedom could never erase the cost. Emily's chest ached as she whispered, the chains may have fallen from me, but I still wear his. Emily said, the world wanted truth, but truth devoured me. Mark sat across from her in the diner, notebook open, pen in hand. His eyes burned with conviction as he said, "Others need to hear the truth." Emily's hands shook as she traced the notebook's edge, whispering, "The truth eats me alive." The locals nearby sipped coffee, casting glances filled with disbelief and pity. One muttered, "She's just broken." Emily said, "They don't see the scars inside." Mark leaned closer, his voice steady. "Your story could stop them." She whispered, "But who will stop them in me?" Her chest tightened as the chants swelled again inside her skull, louder than the clatter of dishes or hum of neon lights. She muttered, "I speak, I relive it. I stay silent, I drown." Mark's expression hardened with resolve, but Emily's face was pale, torn between courage and collapse. She whispered, "No matter what I do, I'll never be free." Emily said, "The cult never ends. It lives in echoes." She stood by the motel window, rain streaking the glass as the storm raged outside. Her breath fogged the pane, trembling hands pressed against the cold surface. She whispered, "Only 2 of us ever made it out." The words struck heavy, each syllable a confession carved into silence. Her body shivered as she muttered, "The rest. They're still there, or gone." Her mind replayed Daniel's voice, his chant rising above thunder, "Sacrifice brings salvation." Emily whispered, "I still hear them in my dreams." Her eyes burned with tears as shadows flickered across the glass, shapes forming the outlines of hooded figures. She closed her eyes, whispering, "I am free but never safe." The silence after was sharp, a scar cut across her soul, final and unending. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside, and Emily knew her life would always carry the echo of chants that never truly died.